In a small apartment on the third floor of an old building in Gaza, there lived two children who shared everything. They shared the same birthday. They shared the same dark curly hair. They shared the same bright smile. And most importantly, they shared a love for something that made their hearts sing. Music. Yasmin and Youssef were 8 years old. They were twins, born just 3 minutes apart. Yasmin came first, and she never let her brother forget it. She would always say she was the older one, even if it was only by a few minutes. Youssef would just laugh and shake his head. He did not mind. He loved his sister more than anyone in the world. Their home was not big. It had 2 small bedrooms, a kitchen, and a living room where the whole family spent most of their time. The walls were painted light blue, and their mother had hung pictures everywhere. Pictures of the children when they were babies, pictures of their grandparents, pictures of flowers and birds that she had cut from old magazines. She always said that a home should feel warm and full of life. But the most special thing in that apartment was not hanging on any wall. It was standing in the corner of the living room. An old piano. It was brown and scratched in many places. Some of the white keys had turned yellow with age, but to the twins, it was the most beautiful thing they had ever seen. Their father had bought that piano many years ago, before the twins were even born. He used to be a music teacher at a small school in the neighborhood. He taught children how to play the oud and the keyboard. Music was his whole life. He believed that every child should know how to create something beautiful with their hands. When Yasmin and Youssef turned 5, their father sat them down on the piano bench for the first time. Their little fingers could barely reach the keys. But he was patient. He showed them how to press one key at a time. He taught them simple songs, the kind that children sing in schools. He clapped his hands when they got it right. He hugged them when they made mistakes. By the time they were 7, the twins could play together without any help. Yasmin played the higher notes with her right hand, while Youssef played the lower ones with his left. They moved together like 2 birds flying side by side. Their father would stand behind them with tears in his eyes. He was so proud of them. Every evening, after dinner, the family would gather in the living room. Their mother would sit on the old sofa with a cup of tea. Their grandmother, who lived with them, would take her favorite chair near the window. And then the twins would begin to play. The music filled every corner of the apartment. It floated out through the open windows and into the street below. Neighbors would stop what they were doing just to listen. Some of them would come out onto their balconies. Others would open their doors and stand in the hallway. A few children from the building would sit on the stairs and tap their feet to the rhythm. There was something magical about those evenings. For a little while, everyone forgot about their problems. They forgot about the things that made them sad or worried. There was only the music, and the music made everything feel okay. Yasmin loved to play fast songs. She liked the way her fingers danced across the keys when the music was quick and lively. Youssef preferred the slow ones. He said the slow songs told better stories. They would often argue about which song to play next, but it was never a real fight. In the end, they always found a way to agree. Their grandmother had a favorite song. It was an old melody that her own mother used to sing to her when she was a little girl. She did not know who wrote it or where it came from, but whenever the twins played it, her eyes would close, and a small smile would appear on her face. She would hum along softly, lost in memories of a time long ago. One evening, their father told them a story. He said that music was like a language that everyone in the world could understand. It did not matter where you came from or what language you spoke. A sad song sounded sad to everyone. A happy song made everyone want to smile. Music could cross borders and climb over walls. It could reach places that people could not. The twins never forgot those words. They began to see their piano as something more than just an instrument. It was a way to speak to the world. Every time they played, they were saying something. They were sharing a piece of their hearts. Life was not always easy in Gaza. There were days when the electricity went out for hours. There were times when the streets were not safe to walk. There were nights when loud sounds from far away made it hard to sleep. But through it all, the piano stayed in its corner. And the twins kept playing. Their mother often said that music was their family's way of staying strong. When things got hard, they did not give up. They played. When they felt scared, they did not hide. They played. The piano was like a friend that never left. It was always there, waiting for them. The twins had big dreams. Yasmin wanted to become a famous pianist one day. She wanted to play on big stages in front of hundreds of people. She wanted to wear a beautiful dress and take a bow while everyone clapped. Yusef's dream was different. He wanted to teach music to other children, just like their father did. He wanted to show them that anyone could learn to play, no matter how small their hands were. Their father told them that both dreams were beautiful. He said it did not matter which path they chose, as long as they kept music in their hearts. He promised that he would always support them, no matter what. But life does not always go the way we plan. Sometimes, things happen that change everything in a single moment. Things that no one sees coming. Things that turn the world upside down. It started on a night that seemed like any other. The family had finished dinner. The twins had played 2 songs on the piano. Their grandmother had hummed along to her favorite melody. Their mother had washed the dishes while their father read the news on his phone. Then, everything changed. The sounds came first. Loud and deep. The kind of sounds that shake the walls and make your chest feel tight. The twins looked at each other with wide eyes. Their father jumped up from his chair. Their mother ran out of the kitchen. There was no time to think, no time to take anything. Their father grabbed the twins by their hands. Their mother helped their grandmother to her feet, and together, they ran, down the stairs, out of the building, into the dark street. Behind them, they could hear the world falling apart. They did not look back. They could not look back. Yasmin held her brother's hands so tight that her fingers hurt. Tears were streaming down her face, but she did not make a sound. Yusef was shaking, but he kept running. He did not let go of his sister's hand for even 1 second. When they finally stopped, they were far from their building, far from their home, far from the only life they had ever known. Yasmin looked at her brother. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Will we ever play again?" Yusef did not answer. He did not know what to say. All he could do was hold her hand and hope that somehow, somewhere, they would find their music again. The school was not a school anymore. It had become a shelter, a place where families came when they had nowhere else to go. When Yasmin and Yusef walked through the gates with their parents and grandmother, they saw something they would never forget. Hundreds of people filled every corner. Families sat on thin mattresses spread across the floors of classrooms. Children cried in their mothers' arms. Old men stared at the walls with empty eyes. The air smelled of sweat and dust and something else the twins could not name. It smelled like sadness. Their father found a small space in one of the hallways. It was not a room. It was just a corner near a window that did not close properly. But it was something. He laid down 2 blankets that a volunteer had given them. This was their home now. Yasmin sat down on the blanket and pulled her knees to her chest. She looked around at all the strangers. So many faces she did not know. So many eyes that looked tired and lost. She wanted to go home. She wanted to sit at her piano and play until everything felt normal again. But home was gone, and so was the piano. Yusef sat next to his sister. He did not say anything. There were no words that could make this better. He just stayed close to her, their shoulders touching. That was enough. The first night was the hardest. The twins could not sleep. The floor was cold and hard. The sounds around them were strange and frightening. Babies crying, people coughing, whispered conversations that went on for hours. Every few minutes, there were noises from outside that made everyone freeze. No one felt safe. Yasmin closed her eyes and tried to imagine she was back in her bedroom. She tried to hear the sound of the piano playing in the living room. She tried to smell her mother's cooking coming from the kitchen, but every time she got close to that dream, a loud sound would bring her back to reality. In the morning, their mother went to get food from the distribution point. She came back with some bread, a small piece of cheese, and 2 bottles of water. It was not much, but she smiled and told the children to eat. She always tried to smile, even when her eyes looked so tired. Days passed. They all started to blend together. There was nothing to do in the shelter. No toys, no books, no games. The twins spent most of their time sitting in their corner, watching people come and go. Sometimes they walked around the building, looking at the old classrooms with broken chairs and dusty chalkboards. Sometimes they stood by the window and looked at the sky. Yasmin missed the piano more than she could say. Her fingers felt empty. They would move on their own sometimes, pressing invisible keys in the air. She did not even realize she was doing it until Yusef pointed it out. He was doing the same thing. They both were. One afternoon, their grandmother called them over. She was sitting against the wall with a thin blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Her health was not good. The journey to the shelter had been hard on her old body, but her eyes still had that gentle warmth that the twins loved so much. She patted the floor beside her. Yasmin sat on one side. Yusef sat on the other. She took their hands in hers. Her skin was soft and wrinkled, like old paper. She asked them why they looked so sad. Yasmin said she missed the piano. Yusef said he missed their home. Their grandmother nodded slowly. She understood. She missed those things too. Then she told them a story they had never heard before. Long ago, when their grandmother was a young girl, she lived in a small village with her family. Her father, the twins' great-grandfather, was a musician. He played the oud, a beautiful stringed instrument that looked like a large wooden pear. He was known throughout the village for his music. Whenever there was a wedding or a celebration, people would call for him. He would sit in the center of the gathering and play songs that made everyone dance and laugh. The twins listened carefully. They had never met their great-grandfather. He had passed away many years before they were born. But now, through their grandmother's words, he came alive. She told them that one day, something bad happened in the village. There was a storm, the worst anyone had ever seen. It destroyed many homes, including theirs. When the storm was over, their great-grandfather searched through the rubble. His oud was gone, broken into pieces and washed away by the rain. He was heartbroken. That oud had been given to him by his own father. It was more than just an instrument. It was a piece of his family, a piece of his history. For many days, he did not speak. He sat alone and stared at the ground. Everyone thought he would never play music again. But then, one evening, something changed. A group of children from the village came to him. They asked him to sing for them. They did not care that he had no instrument. They just wanted to hear his voice. And so he sang. Without any oud, without any accompaniment. Just his voice rising into the night air. The children gathered around him. The adults came out of their tents to listen, and slowly, the village began to heal. Their grandmother squeezed the twins' hands. She looked into their eyes and spoke softly. She said that music does not live in a piano. It does not live in an oud or a guitar or a drum. Those are just tools. Music lives inside us. It lives in our hearts, in our memories, in our breath. No one can take that away. Not a storm, not a war, not anything. Yasmin felt tears rolling down her cheeks. But they were not sad tears. They were something else, something warmer. Their grandmother asked them to close their eyes. She asked them to think of their favorite song. The one they used to play every evening at home. The one she loved to hum along to. The twins closed their eyes. And in the darkness behind their eyelids, they could hear it. The melody. Soft at first, then growing stronger. Note by note. Key by key. It was all there. Every part of it. Stored safely inside them. Their grandmother began to hum. Her voice was old and shaky, but it was beautiful. The twins joined her. First Yasmin, then Yusef. Their three voices wove together like threads in a blanket. People around them stopped what they were doing. A mother rocking her baby looked up. A man sitting alone turned his head. A group of children playing in the corner went quiet. The music was simple, just humming. No words, no instruments, but it filled the hallway. It floated through the shelter like a gentle breeze on a hot day. When the song ended, no one spoke. The silence was different now. It was not empty. It was full of something the shelter had been missing. Hope, a little girl, walked over to the twins. She was maybe 4 or 5 years old. She had big brown eyes and tangled hair. She asked if they could sing again. Yasmin smiled. For the first time since they left home, she really smiled. She nodded and looked at her brother. Youssef nodded too, and so they sang again, and again, and again. Each day after that, the twins would sit with their grandmother and hum their songs. Other children started to join them. Then, some of the mothers. Even a few of the fathers, who usually sat in silence. Music was coming back. Not from a piano. Not from any instrument. But from the hearts of people who refused to let go of hope. One evening, after everyone had gone to sleep, Yasmin whispered to her brother. She said she wished they could find a real piano somewhere, just to touch the keys again, just to feel that magic under their fingers. Youssef whispered back. He said, maybe they would. Maybe somewhere in this broken place, there was still a piano waiting for them. Neither of them knew that just a few days later, that wish would come true. It had been 12 days since the twins arrived at the shelter. 12 days of sleeping on hard floors. 12 days of waiting in long lines for food and water. 12 days of watching the same walls and counting the cracks in the ceiling. Time moved slowly in that place. Every hour felt like a week. But the human spirit is a strange and wonderful thing. Even in the darkest places, it finds ways to keep going. The twins had learned this from their grandmother. They had learned it from the songs they hummed together every evening. And they were about to learn it again in a way they never expected. It was a Thursday afternoon. The twins remembered it was Thursday because that was the day the volunteers brought extra bread. The shelter was quieter than usual. Most of the adults were resting. The younger children were taking naps on their mothers' laps. Even the air seemed tired. Yasmin was restless. She had been sitting in the same spot for hours, and her legs were starting to ache. She looked at her brother and asked if he wanted to go for a walk. Youssef shrugged. There was not much to see in the shelter. They had already explored every hallway and every classroom, but anything was better than sitting still. They told their mother they would be back soon. She nodded and told them not to go too far. They promised they would stay inside the building. The twins walked through the main hallway. Past families huddled together on mattresses. They passed the room where the volunteers stored the food supplies. They passed the small courtyard where some men were trying to fix a broken water pipe. Everything looked the same as it did yesterday. And the day before that, Youssef suggested they go upstairs. The second floor was mostly empty. Some of the classrooms had been damaged, and the volunteers had told everyone to stay away from that area. But the twins were curious. They had never been up there before. The staircase was dusty. Each step made a soft creaking sound under their feet. When they reached the top, they found a long hallway with doors on both sides. Most of the doors were closed. Some had signs that said danger or keep out. Yasmin felt a little nervous. Maybe they should go back. But Youssef was already walking ahead, peeking through the small windows on each door. He waved for her to follow. They passed one classroom that had a big hole in the wall. They could see the sky through it. They passed another that was filled with broken desks and chairs piled up like a mountain. They passed a third that was completely empty except for a single shoe lying in the corner. Then they reached the last door at the end of the hallway. It was different from the others. It was made of heavier wood, and there was no window to peek through. Youssef tried the handle. It was stuck. He pushed harder. The door groaned and scraped against the floor, but it opened just enough for them to squeeze through. Inside, the room was dark. The only light came from a small window high up on the wall. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars. The twins stood still for a moment, letting their eyes adjust. The room was full of old things. Boxes stacked against the walls, broken chairs leaning on each other, rolled up carpets covered in dust. It looked like a storage room that no one had entered in years. Yasmin was about to suggest they leave when Youssef grabbed her arm. He pointed to the far corner of the room. His hand was shaking. She looked. And then she saw it. A piano. It was old. Very old. The wood was scratched and faded. One of the legs was cracked and held together with tape. The cover over the keys was hanging open at a strange angle. Dust covered every inch of it like a gray blanket. But it was a piano. The twins stood frozen. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. It was like seeing a ghost from their old life, a ghost from their home. Yasmin was the first to step forward. Her feet moved on their own. She walked slowly across the room, stepping over boxes and broken things. When she reached the piano, she stopped. Her heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. She reached out her hand and touched the wood. It was cold and rough under her fingers. Real. This was real. Youssef came up beside her. He was breathing hard. His eyes were wide and full of something she had not seen in days. Hope. Together, they lifted the broken cover all the way open. The keys were yellow and chipped. Some of them were missing entirely. There were gaps like missing teeth in a smile. But most of the keys were still there. Most of them were still waiting. Yasmin pressed one key. The sound that came out was strange. It was not the clear, bright note she remembered from their piano at home. It was softer. A little sad. Like the piano was tired too, but it was music. Tears began to fall down her cheeks. She did not wipe them away. She did not even try. She just pressed another key. And another. And another. Youssef sat down on an old crate next to his sister. There was no bench, so this would have to do. He placed his fingers on the lower keys. They felt different from the ones at home. Rougher. Stickier, but they still worked. He played a note. Then another. Then a few more. And then, without saying a word, the twins began to play together. It was the lullaby. The one their father had taught them when they were 5 years old. The one they had played 1,000 times in their living room back home. The one their grandmother loved to hum. The piano was out of tune. Some notes sounded wrong. Some keys did not make any sound at all. But the melody was there. Broken and imperfect. But there. The music floated through the dusty room. It slipped through the cracks in the door. It drifted down the staircase. It reached the hallways below, where hundreds of people were resting and waiting, and trying to survive another day. One by one, heads began to turn. People looked up from their mattresses. Children stopped playing with pebbles on the floor. Mothers paused their quiet conversations. Everyone was listening. A young boy was the first to move. He was maybe 6 years old, with messy hair and a torn shirt. He followed the sound up the stairs, his small feet padding softly on each step. When he reached the storage room, he peeked through the gap in the door. He saw the twins sitting at the old piano. He saw their fingers moving across the keys. He saw the tears on Yasmin's face and the small smile on Youssef's lips. He pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. Then came another child. And another. And another. Within minutes, the dusty storage room was filled with children. They sat on boxes and broken chairs. They leaned against the walls. They crowded around the piano like it was a warm fire on a cold night. No one spoke. No one needed to. The twins kept playing. Song after song. Some they remembered perfectly. Others they had to make up as they went along. It did not matter. The children listened to everything. Their eyes were bright. Their faces were calm. For the first time since arriving at the shelter, Yasmin felt like herself again. She felt like the girl who used to play piano every evening, while the neighbors listened from their balconies. She felt like the girl who dreamed of playing on big stages someday. Youssef felt it too. The heaviness that had been sitting on his chest for days began to lift. The music was doing something to him. It was healing something inside that he did not even know was broken. When they finally stopped playing, the room was silent. But it was a good silence. A peaceful silence. A little girl in the front raised her hand like she was in school. She asked if they could play one more song. Yasmin looked at Youssef. He nodded. And so they played again. For the children. For themselves. For everyone who needed to remember that even in the hardest times, beautiful things could still exist. That evening, word spread through the entire shelter. Everyone was talking about the twins who had found a piano. Everyone wanted to hear them play. Something was changing. Something small but powerful. Music had returned. And it was just the beginning. The news about the piano spread through the shelter like wind through an open field. By the next morning, everyone knew about the twins and their discovery. People whispered about it while waiting in line for bread. Mothers told their children about it before bed. Even the old men who rarely spoke to anyone were curious. The storage room on the second floor was no longer forgotten. It had become the most important place in the entire building. Every afternoon, the twins would climb the dusty stairs and sit at the broken piano. And every afternoon, people would follow. At first, it was just the children. They would squeeze into the room and sit on the floor with their legs crossed. Their eyes would grow wide as they watched the twins' fingers dance across the yellow keys. Some of them had never seen a piano before. Some of them had never heard music played live. To them, it was like watching magic happen right in front of their eyes. But soon, the adults started coming too. It began with a few mothers who wanted to see what their children were so excited about. They stood in the doorway at first, not wanting to take up space. But as the music filled the room, they stepped closer. They found spots along the walls. They closed their eyes and let the sound wash over them. Then came the fathers, the grandfathers, the teenage boys who tried to act like nothing impressed them anymore. One by one, they all came. And one by one, they all stayed. The room was never big enough. People stood in the hallway outside. They sat on the stairs. Some even listened from the floor below. Their ears pressed against the ceiling. It did not matter that they could not see the twins playing. They could hear the music, and that was enough. Yasmin and Youssef played every song they knew. They played the lullabies their father had taught them. They played the fast, happy songs that Yasmin loved. They played the slow, sad songs that Youssef preferred. They played their grandmother's favorite melody so many times that everyone in the shelter learned to hum along. But soon, they ran out of songs. So they started making new ones. Youssef would play a few notes on the lower keys. Yasmin would answer with a few notes on the higher keys. They would go back and forth like they were having a conversation. Sometimes the music was playful. Sometimes it was serious. Sometimes it made people laugh. Sometimes it made people cry. One afternoon, a young mother asked if she could sing while they played. She had a beautiful voice, soft and clear like water running over stones. The twins nodded and began to play a simple melody. The woman closed her eyes and sang a song about her village. A song her own mother had taught her long ago. When she finished, the room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone was clapping. The woman covered her face with her hands, but the twins could see she was smiling underneath. After that, more people wanted to join. An old man asked if he could recite a poem while they played. A group of children wanted to clap along to a fast song. A teenage girl who had not spoken since arriving at the shelter asked if she could just sit next to the piano and watch. The twins said yes to everyone. Music was no longer just something to listen to. It was something the whole shelter was creating together. It was bringing people out of their sadness. It was giving them something to look forward to each day. It was reminding them that they were still alive, still human, still capable of beauty. One evening, a man came to the storage room. He was not from the shelter. He wore a vest with many pockets and carried a small bag over his shoulder. He was one of the aid workers who came every few days to bring supplies and check on everyone. He had heard about the twins from the volunteers downstairs. He wanted to see for himself. He stood in the doorway and watched as Yasmin and Youssef played. The room was packed with people. Children sat in the front. Adults stood in the back. Everyone was quiet. Their faces soft in the dim light. The only sound was the music floating through the dusty air. The aid worker felt something catch in his throat. He had been to many shelters. He had seen many sad things. But he had never seen anything like this. Two small children, sitting at a broken piano, bringing peace to hundreds of people. He took out his phone and pressed record. He did not record for long. Just a few minutes. He captured the twins playing side by side. He captured the faces of the children, watching with wide eyes. He captured the old woman in the corner, humming along with tears on her cheeks. He captured a moment that words could never fully describe. That night, the aid worker sat in his small room at the volunteer station. He watched the video again and again. He thought about his own children back home. He thought about how lucky they were to have warm beds and schools and safety. He thought about these two twins who had lost everything but still found a way to make music. He made a decision. He posted the video online. He wrote a few simple words about what he had seen. About the shelter. About the twins. About the broken piano that was healing broken hearts. Then he went to sleep. When he woke up the next morning, his phone would not stop buzzing. The video had been shared. And shared again. And shared again. By the time the sun was fully up, thousands of people had watched it. By the afternoon, it was hundreds of thousands. By the evening, it had crossed 1 million. People from all over the world were watching the twins play. Messages poured in from every corner of the earth. People wrote that they cried while watching. People wrote that they showed it to their children. People wrote that they had lost hope in the world, but this video gave some of it back. Teachers played it in classrooms. Musicians shared it with their followers. News stations began asking about the story behind the video. The aid worker returned to the shelter the next day. He found the twins sitting with their grandmother in their usual corner. He knelt down in front of them and told them what had happened. Their eyes went wide. He showed them his phone. He showed them the numbers, the views, the comments. He read some of the messages out loud. Messages from people in countries the twins had only heard about in school. Messages from children their own age who wanted to learn piano now. Messages from grown adults who said 2 8-year-olds had taught them something important about strength. Yasmin looked at her brother. Youssef looked back at her. They did not fully understand what was happening. They were just kids. They did not know about viral videos or social media, or how the internet could connect millions of people in a single day. All they knew was that they had played music because it made them feel better, because it helped the people around them, because it was the only thing they had left. But now, their music had traveled farther than they ever imagined. It had crossed oceans and mountains and borders. It had reached people they would never meet and touched hearts they would never see. Their grandmother pulled them close. She kissed the tops of their heads. She told them she was proud of them. So very proud. Their father, who had been listening quietly from a few feet away, wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. He remembered the words he had told them once. Music was a language everyone could understand. It could cross borders and climb over walls. It could reach places that people could not. His children had proven him right. That night, the twins went back to the storage room. The crowd was bigger than ever. Word had spread that the video was being watched by people all over the world. Everyone wanted to be part of it. Everyone wanted to hear the music that was touching so many hearts. Yasmin sat down at the piano. Youssef sat beside her. She looked at all the faces watching them. Children, parents, grandparents, strangers who had become like family over the past weeks. She took a deep breath, and then she began to play. The days that followed were unlike anything the twins had ever experienced. The video continued to spread across the world like ripples in a pond that never stopped moving. Every day, the aid worker would come to the shelter with new updates. More views, more shares, more messages from people whose names they could not pronounce from places they had never heard of. But the twins did not care much about the numbers. Numbers were just numbers. What mattered to them was something much simpler. They could see changes happening right in front of their eyes. Real changes, changes they could touch and feel. It started with the donations. People who watched the video wanted to help. They sent money to the organizations working at the shelter. Within a week, new supplies began arriving. Blankets, medicine, food that was not just bread and cheese, clean water, clothes for the children who had been wearing the same torn shirts for weeks. One morning, a truck arrived carrying mattresses, real mattresses, soft and clean and wrapped in plastic. The volunteers carried them inside and handed them out to the families. That night, For the first time since leaving home, Yasmin slept without feeling the cold, hard floor against her back. She pulled the blanket up to her chin and closed her eyes. It was not her old bed. It was not her old room. But it was something. And something was everything. More help came in different forms. Doctors arrived to check on the sick and the elderly. Teachers came to start small classes for the children, so they would not fall too far behind in their learning. A group of women set up a small kitchen where mothers could cook proper meals instead of just eating whatever was handed to them. The shelter was still a shelter. It was still crowded and noisy, and far from perfect. But it was getting better. Little by little. Day by day. And everyone knew that the twins and their piano had played a part in making it happen. But the biggest surprise came on a warm afternoon near the end of the month. A woman arrived at the shelter. She was not a volunteer or an aid worker. She was a musician, a pianist from a country far across the sea. She had seen the video of the twins and had been so moved that she booked a flight and came to see them herself. When she walked into the storage room and saw the old broken piano, she stopped in her tracks, her eyes filled with tears. She ran her fingers over the dusty keys and shook her head in amazement. These two children had created something beautiful with this instrument that most people would have thrown away. She asked the twins to play for her. They were nervous at first. This woman was a real pianist, a professional. She had probably played on the biggest stages in the world. What if they made mistakes? What if she thought they were not good enough? But their father, who was standing nearby, gave them an encouraging nod. Their grandmother smiled from her chair in the corner. And so, they sat down at the piano, side by side, just like they always did. They played their grandmother's favorite song, the one they had played 100 times before. Their fingers moved across the keys with ease. The melody filled the room, soft and sweet and full of feeling. When they finished, the woman was crying openly. She did not try to hide it. She knelt down in front of the twins and took their hands in hers. She told them that in all her years of playing music, she had never heard anything so pure, so honest, so full of heart. She told them they had a gift, a real gift, and she wanted to help them share it with the world. Over the next few days, the woman made arrangements. She spoke to people on her phone for hours. She sent emails and made video calls. She talked to the shelter directors and the aid organizations. She talked to musicians and teachers and anyone who would listen. And then she made an announcement. A foundation was being set up in the twins' honor. It would be called something simple, something that captured what they had done. The purpose of the foundation was to bring music to children in difficult places, shelters, camps, hospitals, anywhere that children needed something beautiful to hold on to. But that was not all. The woman had also arranged for the twins to receive music lessons, real lessons, from professional teachers who would work with them online until it was safe for them to travel. She promised that one day, when things were better, she would bring them to her country. She would take them to a real concert hall. She would let them play on a real stage in front of a real audience. Yasmin could not believe what she was hearing. Her dream. The dream she had whispered to herself on quiet nights back home. The dream of playing on a big stage while people clapped. It was coming true. Not all at once, not right away. But it was coming. Youssef was just as happy, but for a different reason. He asked the woman if the foundation would teach other children to play music. She said yes. That was the whole point. He smiled the biggest smile his family had seen in weeks. His dream was coming true too. He was going to help other kids learn to play, just like their father had helped them. The night before the woman left, the shelter held a special gathering. It was not planned. It just happened. People brought whatever food they had and shared it with each other. Someone found a few candles and lit them around the storage room. The warm glow made everything look soft and golden. The twins played for everyone one last time before the woman had to leave. But this time, it was different. This time, everyone joined in. The children sang. The mothers clapped. The old men tapped their feet. Even the teenage boys who tried to act cool were humming along. The woman stood in the back of the room, watching. She recorded a new video on her phone. But this one, she did not post. This one was just for her, a memory she would keep forever. When the music ended, people did not leave right away. They stayed and talked. They laughed. They hugged each other. For one night, the shelter did not feel like a place of sadness. It felt like a community, a family. The twins sat at the piano long after everyone else had gone. The candles had burned down to small stubs. The room was quiet. Yasmin rested her head on her brother's shoulder. Yusef rested his head on top of hers. Their grandmother came to find them. She moved slowly, her old bones tired from the long evening. She sat down on a crate beside them and took their hands. She reminded them of what she had told them weeks ago. Music lives in the heart. No one can take it away. She said they had proven that to the whole world. Two small children with nothing but their love for each other and their love for music. They had touched millions of hearts. They had brought hope to people who had forgotten what hope felt like. She told them that no matter what happened next, they should never stop playing. Never stop sharing their gift. The world needed more music. More beauty. More reminders that even in the darkest times, light could still be found. Yasmin looked at the old piano. The scratched wood. The broken keys. The dust that still settled in the corners. It was not perfect. It was not even close to perfect, but it had given them everything. She placed her fingers on the keys one more time. Yusef did the same. Together, they played a soft, gentle melody. No audience this time. No cameras. No crowds. Just the two of them and their grandmother in a quiet room lit by the last flicker of candlelight. The music floated out the window and into the night sky. It drifted over the shelter and the streets beyond. It rose higher and higher until it seemed to touch the stars. Somewhere out there, someone was listening. Someone who needed to hear it. Someone whose heart was waiting to be healed. And the twins kept playing. Because that is what music does. It finds the people who need it. It reaches across distance and time and pain. It reminds us all that we are not alone. And as long as there are people willing to play, the music will never stop.